Every genre of game has games that are must-plays, and if you're anything like me, then fantasy RPGs hit home the most. We start with two role-playing games from the same series but with totally different approaches. On the one hand, we have Tainted Grail Conquest, a medieval fantasy role-playing card game with rogue-like mechanics, featuring 450 cards, lots of skills, and a very high difficulty ceiling. On the other hand, the series' newest release, Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon, is presented as a first-person game in an open world full of monsters. Either or both of these games are essentials if you like this kind of genre. One series that you must play is Age of Wonders, which already has several installments. This year, Age of Wonders 4 was released, and it's a great addition to the series. The game is full of factions, characters, and decisions to keep you occupied in a story with great strategic depth. The best thing is that the games in this series are usually very well priced. One game that I never tire of recommending is King Arthur Knight's Tale, an RPG set in the world of King Arthur but full of monsters, boasting a complex story that is carefully revealed through numerous missions. The game uses turn-based combat and castle management to influence your campaign. While it may not seem like it at first glance, this is a pretty long game, as it can take more than 50 hours to complete the main story. Another must-try in the world of role-playing games is the Fallout series. Although it moves away from the usual medieval theme in this genre, we gotta remember that role-playing games do not have to be medieval. The Fallout series is pretty incredible. Some games are better than others, but all of them are great in some way. If you haven't played any of them, you're really missing out, because they're kind of like watching a really good movie, but a movie that you have control over. If you've already played the entire Fallout series and are looking for something of the same quality, then I gotta recommend the Baldurs Gate saga. Although for a while it was lesser known until the arrival of Baldurs Gate 3, the last game is, for me, the best RPG that exists to date. Since its launch in early access, it has shown massive potential, and rather than disappointing in its final version, it has surprised with even more content. If you take anything from this video, playing Baldurs Gate 3 is a must. Another classic that is a must-play, although older and harder to obtain now, is the original The Legend of Zelda for the original NES. I just played it again recently, and despite its dated graphics, it is still an indispensable title for role-playing game lovers. The series has continued to evolve with many great installments, nearing almost 30 Zelda title games. But it has moved away from the traditional RPG. Even so, the original game deserves to be played at least once. And speaking of legendary sagas, we can't forget the Elder Scrolls, known worldwide for Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. This game offers hundreds of hours in an impressive role-playing world, and if you finish it and want more, there happens to be the Elder Scrolls Online, which continues to expand with new adventures. One of our favorite series is Mount & Blade, which offers immense freedom in its open world. The concept is clear and simple as well. You start as a peasant with nothing, you create your gang, and then you throw yourself into a cruel world to forge your own destiny. Start as a mercenary, then become a knight, and finally fight for the thrones of Calradia. If you haven't played the latest installment, Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is still well populated with players. Another must-play and highly immersive game is Darkest Dungeon. Forget about Part 2 if you haven't played the first one as well. And get ready, because this is a difficult and cruel game that will keep you guessing and always try to frustrate you. However, after every run and every failure, you'll want to keep advancing in its challenging world. Continuing with cruel worlds, we can't forget about Kenshi, a game created by one person, a survival RPG set in a desert land full of death and betrayal where you can be killed for simply looking at someone the wrong way. It has hundreds of hours of content thanks to its different factions and survival methods. Very unique game and highly recommended. Another ruthless game world to take part in is brought to us by Elden Ring. Although the entire Souls saga is exceptional, I think Elden Ring stands out for its own world being less linear than the original Dark Souls, which wholly reinforces that role-playing feel. Its world is incredible and full of life, offering the Dark Souls experience but in a more vast environment. The only downside I can find is that in the secondary missions, the voices can be a bit repetitive, but otherwise this is a 10 out of 10 game. With a more heraldic touch, Songs of Conquest is reminiscent of Might and Magic, but with extremely careful pixel art and very original mechanics. After each mission, you get to have a bard sing your story. How cool is that? This game is still in early access, but is highly recommended as an experience if you like the genre. We'll leave the medieval world to travel to the stars with Mass Effect, a legendary game series. Although its latest installment wasn't the best in the eyes of many fans, the saga as a whole is still in everybody's hearts. Mass Effect stands out for its dialogues and depth of the characters in the game. As long as you don't mind reading a lot, you gotta give this series a chance. Speaking of similar series but different environment, there's the Dragon Age games. If you haven't already played Dragon Age Origins or Inquisition yet, you have several hours of gameplay ahead of you to prepare before the release of the new installment. And, of course, we could not leave out Geralt of Rivia or the Witcher Saga. Although the first two games were good, The Witcher 3 is a real masterpiece in its own. It is true that the combat progression system has some critics, but it is still an exceptional game with dozens of hours of content. A true must-play game.